you catch that? This is all about fly fishing for carp, the way we do it in the UK. The one thing this isn't is purist fly fishing. What we're going to do is we're going to get carp feeding on the surface by throwing in bait. In this case it's going to be dog biscuits, and then we're going to cast, using fly tackle, a fly that looks every bit like a dog biscuit at them, and hopefully we'll catch a fish or two. Important, if you go fly fishing in the UK at a carp fishery, do check out that they don't mind having you there. Carp fisheries often aren't designed to have people using back casts, and sometimes they don't like you using floating bait because it tends to draw fish from one area of the lake and move them into another if the wind starts blowing. So if you want to go fly fishing for carp in the UK, do phone up the fishery you've chosen first and check that you're welcome. The tackle we're going to be using is quite basic. In this case it's a 9-foot, 7-weight Vision saltwater fly rod and a large arbor reel. We're going to use just one rod length of 10-pound breaking strain mono, no fluorocarbons, no copolymers, dead simple. And we're going to be using, for a fly, a craftily made dog biscuit. And this is constructed very simply from 2 bunches of deer hair tied onto this, in this case it's a size 2 Drennan specimen hook, and then clipped back to give the exact dimensions, or close to exact, of the dog biscuits we're going to be throwing in. And the other thing that we need is a nice big soft meshed landing net, because carp fishermen are very protective about the welfare of their fish, and some of these fish can be quite big. So if you haven't got one, get yourself one of these before you go, because if you have a small net you ain't going to be welcome even if they're going to let you fly fish. Right, we're going to be using these very well-known dog biscuits as our ground bait. As you can see, they're about 1/4 of an inch square, pretty much uniform, slightly rough in shape, and we're going to get the fish going by scattering these on the water. We're going to do it in a kind of gradual way, but the first thing that I'm going to expect is going to happen is that waterfowl, ducks, moorhens are going to start coming in and feeding on this. Now, this can be a real nuisance, but there's a trick, and the trick is this: be generous. If you bring enough feed with you, this stuff is cheap as chips, about 2.5 quid for a bag this size. Feed the ducks, give them as much as they want, because once they've had enough, you'll know, and they'll swim off, and you'll have the carp to yourself. Although this isn't purist fly fishing, the principles of fly fishing do apply when fishing the biscuit. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that these biscuits in this bowl of water are actually sitting in the surface film. They're not sitting right high on it. So in the same way you'd use an emerger if you were fishing for trout, you're using a kind of emerger style fly, and that's why we're using deer hair creations, because they do sit nicely when the ballast of the hook is hanging down in the water. They'll keep that dog biscuit fly sitting nicely in the surface film. Now the moment's come to try and get the fish feeding on the surface, but first of all I'm expecting the ducks to move in, so let's see what happens. It looks like the ducks aren't going to be a problem, at least at the beginning, because we've already got carp feeding in front of us. So what I'm going to do is keep this stuff going in until the fish are feeding competitively, if possible, where they're coming one over each other to try and get the dog biscuits. At that point, we'll start considering putting a fly in front of them. And we're ready. The carp have been rising in front of us fitfully. They're not quite in a feeding frenzy, so it's going to have to be a case of picking one's moment and picking one's fish. Oh! Yes! Come in. Okay, this is where it all starts. Normally these fish just head off in one long run, but this one's decided to kind of stick around under my feet, and he's now being followed by a shoal of others. And the trick with these fish is to keep putting pressure from different directions on them. Right, there's always a temptation to try and get these fish in too early, and this is going to be no exception. I think I'm going to start getting the net ready now, but he's really not quite ready. He's just not done much in the way of a long run yet. So a lot of power still left in him. It's a very powerful fish. It's like being hooked into a train. No acrobatics, just solid pulling power. And I think, well, I hope, he's still not ready. So there we have it. Carp on the fly.